Hello, and welcome to On the Trail, the Hamilton Spectator's Provincial Election Podcast. My name is Emma Reilly. I am the Specs Election Editor and your podcast host. So this week was the first official week of the provincial election. We had Mike Schreiner sort of swing through Hamilton on Wednesday afternoon.
It was.
It was.
I bumped into him on James Street North. So,
you did?
Yeah.
This voice that you're hearing is none other than Larry Ianni, former Hamilton mayor, political veteran, insider, full of knowledge and spicy Twitter commentary. Larry, thank you so much for being here today.
Emma, my pleasure. Nice to be here. Nice to see you. Yes, and I saw Mike Schreiner. I have an office on James and Mulberry, the Hamilton Hotel, and I was having coffee just outside. They have a nice little patio just installed, and I heard a big roar, and it was his crowd, and he came, and I saw him, and so I went and snapped some pictures for Twitter.
Yes,
I posted it, and I've gotten the most response on that post than I've ever had on any other post. And I've posted pictures with the Prime Minister and the Premier and others as well.
Interesting.
So I don't know what that says, other than maybe people are surprised that I sort of was nice to Mike Schreiner, but he's a good guy, and I think he should have been in the debate as well.
Mm-hmm. What is your impression of him as a leader and of the Greens locally and their chances? What do you think?
Well, I don't know all the Greens. Well, first of all, in my view, all political ideology is welcome in the mix. And then it's the voters who decide whom to elect and who not to elect. So the fact that the Greens, who garner a percentage of the popular vote at every election, the fact that they were shut out of a debate and which disallows even their ideas from being heard, is anti-democratic as far as I'm concerned. So there's some sympathy that I have for that notion. I like the Greens because they are environmentally responsible, but also fiscally responsible. So that sort of is an appeal because contrast that to the NDP, for example, environmental and spend. The Liberals have done some of that this time around as well. So I think you need to look after the bottom line. The Greens seem to do that. Whether they will garner much support this time around remains to be seen. I think they'll get some because people may not be enamored with Doug Ford. They may not like the Premier. They may not want to vote NDP. And so by default, they may go Green. I don't know. We'll see.
Mike Schreiner was telling me that he's hoping to get a seat this year in Guelph. And that seat was formerly held by Liz Sandals,
right,
who was Education Minister and
right,
I think Treasury Board Chair.
Right.
So very high profile, but she's not running again.
No, she's not. So anytime there's an empty seat without an incumbent, of course, it advantages newcomers, and he is someone that they would know. I don't know the Guelph situation well, but he seems like a bright man, and certainly he's a leader of a party, and if people elect him, I think that'll strengthen the representation at Queen's Park.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on locally.
Yeah.
So Larry, you were telling me that you have run 9 campaigns going back to 1982.
Yes.
So you know a little bit.
I was 2.
Oh, you don't look a day over 31, Larry.
Oh, thank you.
You were telling me that you have an interesting perspective on what it takes to run a campaign. You knocked on over 3,000 doors.
When I ran federally, I knocked off. That was when Stéphane Dion was the leader, and so when I ran federally, we knocked on a lot of doors. Started in January, slipped down sidewalks and fell out of the steps, and then of course it came to naught because people just didn't support the leader, which is the lesson really for the candidates running now. I mean, one of the questions you would ask me was, what should they be doing? What are they doing right now? So the writ was just dropped. If they're starting right now, they're behind. And many of them, of course, have known that they'd be candidates quite some time ago, although we've got a couple of anomalies here in Hamilton that delayed things. So they're behind because all of the organization needs to be done before the writ is dropped. And then when the writ is dropped, it's all about execution. And what's the organization? Well, you got to line up your fundraising. You got to line up your campaign team. Who's going to put the signs up? Who's going to run the office? Who's going to take messages? who's going to organize the candidates' day over the period of the campaign period. You can't have the candidate doing all of that. The candidate simply has to focus on what's the platform, how am I going to deliver those messages, how do I prepare for debates, because there are always debates, and not worry about the logistics. But you need somebody to do that, otherwise you're going to look disorganized. And so all of that should have been done, and now it's execution. Now it's, you're on the stage, the spotlight's on, and you go out and do your best. And what they're doing now is knocking on doors and meeting people and getting their literature out. Probably not, it's a little early for that now, but it will come out. And then what they're doing is they're looking at the polls. Even though they'll tell you, polls don't matter, the only poll that matters is an election day, believe me, they look at the polls. And they read articles like the one you wrote the other day, which was good for some parties because you essentially said the NDP looks strong in Hamilton. Very discouraging for the other parties and the workers who are out there saying, oh my gosh, we're trying so hard, and here's someone who's got an analytical perspective who's saying we're not doing well. And then, you look at the Polara poll or the Ipsos Reid poll or whatever, and you either are buoyed or discouraged by those results as well. But something inside you, this is the candidate that has to do this, has to rally the team and say, we're going to win this. There isn't a candidate that's running today that doesn't think he or she is going to win. They all know they're going to win, and you need that to sustain you from day to day. And then you go out and you do the best you can.
What about if you're running in a riding? And I mean, I just want to clarify one thing, because it wasn't me who was saying those things. It was the sort of experts that I had spoken to that I was reporting on. So just to clarify.
No, I know, but I get that.
If somebody, one of the people that I spoke to for that article you mentioned that I wrote, which was sort of a look ahead to the race and reflecting the climate as it stands now, one of the experts from McMaster University, Henry Jasek, that I spoke to, said basically someone like Andrea Horvath in Hamilton Centre is pretty much unbeatable. And you know what? I actually would tend to agree with that, because she's the party leader and she's looking strong. But how do you then go up against somebody like that as a candidate?
I mean, the surprise there was Deirdre Pike.
Yeah.
Accepting the nomination for the Liberals. A, she'd been, I think, a lifelong NDPer. And B, she's running against the leader. And I said this, I said to Deirdre, whom I like very much, by the way, as I do Andrea. And actually, I was quite impressed with the Conservative candidate that they've...
Dion Duncan.
Dion Duncan.
She's very bright, impressive.
Very bright.
She's a medical doctor?
Not a medical doctor. She's a PhD doctor.
A PhD doctor, pardon me. Yeah.
But still, those are pretty good credentials. So the surprise is Deirdre deciding to run for the Liberals and then deciding to run against Andrea, of all people. And I said, Deirdre, there's nothing you do in your life that's easy. You don't take the easy road. You always take the difficult challenge. And I guess you felt compelled to do it. She lives there. That's her backyard, as it were. And so how do you go against Andrea, who's a party leader, who was a popular councillor? We served together on council. In fact, if she had not gone into provincial politics, and I was in the mayor's chair at the time, I was going to ask her to be the deputy mayor. And we were going to try to change the dynamics so we have a deputy mayor assigned for the term. And Andrea would have done a very good job at that, I'm sure. But she went elsewhere, and now she may be premier, who knows. So Deirdre is a surprise because she's taken on a challenge that seems insurmountable. So in her, and I've chatted with Deirdre, I've seen her in action, I went to her nomination opening. She is full of confidence. She feels that she has the right policies and the right team implementing those policies, and that's what's driving her. So it's not a question of, can I win? It's a question of what's the right thing to do in her mind. Of course, the other candidates would feel the same way.
What makes you put yourself out there as a candidate?
Oh my God.
Go through it.
Yeah.
Take weeks out of your life. It's grueling, even, for the leaders, of course, but also for a local candidate, as you said, knocking on doors every day. So much time, so much energy, and ultimately only one person's going to Queen's Park.
That's right. So a brick hits your head. Almost. It's a combination of things, right? It's a combination of ego. You need to have a secure ego to put your name on a ballot and say to people, vote for me, and many will, and lots won't. And so, you have to deal with that rejection, and it's not easy. It's more fun to win than it is to lose. I know from experience. But part of it is that, but it's not entirely that. The other part is just this feeling of public service, that you've got what it takes to do the right thing in terms of establishing public policy and doing what's best for your community. And then at the provincial level, where you got teams, you've got these tribes, right? You got the NDP tribe, the Liberal tribe, the Conservative tribe. You believe in that tribe. You like what they stand for. You like the principles that they articulate and they try to implement. And so you bond yourself to that tribe, and you say, not only do I believe in that tribe, but I want to help the team. I want to be in the tribe, in the trenches or in the front lines, as it were. And those are the things that motivate. And the other part is, this is the hidden part, is sometimes people tap you on the shoulder, right? Sometimes somebody comes along, whether it's a premier or a cabinet minister or an influential person, and says, you know what, I think you'd be an excellent candidate. Why don't you give it a shot? And all of those combination make people decide whether to go forward or not.
It's an intoxicating cocktail.
Well, you know what it is, and my wife, I've run in many campaigns. She pledged one time. I think I've been cured. I'm out of it now. But she said, when nomination period, I'm going to lock you in the basement until it's over. Because the moment you get out, you go sign yourself up somewhere.
Well, you know what? Politics gets under your skin and into your blood, and
Emma, I'll tell you. When I started way back in '82, and it was a local issue that got me involved, I went and there were two counselors. One had been there 13 years and one had been there 17 years. And I remember thinking, looking at them and thinking, very fine people, but thinking to myself, get a life. What are you guys still doing? And then 25 years later, I had to be pushed out.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for your insight. Will you come back again and talk to us more, perhaps at a later date, closer to the election, about what you think about how the race is progressing?
I know who's going to win, so you have me back.
Let's hear it
now.
Okay, no, you heard it here first. Larry knows who's going to win. So again, this has been On the Trail. Thank you so much to Larry Ianni for coming in. I am Emma Reilly. As always, if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at 905-526-2452 or via email at ereilly@thespec.com. Thanks for tuning in.